ever wonder about men? I mean, emotionally, the manly men, those strong, silent types. How did they get so stoic? Why did so many men evolve to keep their feelings buried inside? Or did they just learn it? This is Mating Matters. There's probably no more masculine ceremony than the final drill at a Marine Corps boot camp. The men lined up, all stoic and stone-faced, gripping their large guns with powerful arms, while a drill sergeant screams commands. If they're intimidated, you'd never know it.
Attention! About face!
Welcome to Mating Matters. I'm Dr. Wendy Walsh. In this episode, the price of manhood. Is there a physical and emotional toll to being uber masculine? And why did it evolve in the first place? Is there a mating advantage? Spoiler alert, there used to be an advantage, but the environment is changing, and men are adapting to a different kind of hunting ground. Way back in 1874, Charles Darwin had human mating figured out. In fact, he once wrote, "If each male secures 2 or more females, many males cannot pair." Ouch. That's the biggest fear of any man. This is why male-to-male competition for mates is crucial to evolution. No guy wants to be the one who misses out on mating. To win a woman's favor, a man needed to first fight other males for access to females, or guard the resources females need for survival. Yeah, we know how you hoard the money, dudes. And secondly, they must attract females using sexual ornamentation. We call those big muscles. Or gifts like food and houses. No doubt about it, like a cumbersome peacock's tail, men evolved to be manly men because women so often chose that. Men signal their fitness as mates by pummeling one another. Even today, fighters often get the girl. In 3 studies published in Evolution and Human Behavior, researchers Hans Rosch, Joost Lonnessen, and Mark van Vugt of England and the Netherlands found that World War II veterans who had a Medal of Honor had more children than regular servicemen who'd returned from the same war. Now, just because a dude fathers more kids doesn't actually mean he has access to more women or that he's getting it on more often. It could just mean that his wife is more fertile. So, to test if war heroes really are the hot ticket for women, the researchers set up a second study. This time they asked 92 female students in the UK to rate a group of male dating profiles based on attractiveness. Some of the men's profiles showed them as civilians, others in the military. The military profiles were then divided into 3 groups: those who had won a war medal, those who had served in active combat but didn't win any hardware, and those who never left home base. How do you think the professions measured up? Well, men with military service got the most swipe rights. But whether the guy served in combat or didn't leave the safety of home base didn't matter at all to the women. However, the guys with the war medal, they beat out all the men on ratings of attractiveness. Now that women are serving in the military, does it work in reverse? Sadly, bravery is not a trait that men tend to pick in women. Also, guys, risking your life without a big fight, all those daring feats and action sports that you put on your dating profiles does not ring the dinner bell for women. This data came from a 3rd study set up by the same researchers. This time, they had both men and women rate dating profiles of opposite gender prospects. Sorry, female mountain climbers, jet pilots, and skydivers. Guys are not necessarily interested in women who do anything amazingly brave. As for male profiles, once again, the medal winners got the juices flowing for the ladies, but only if they won their medal in actual combat. Women like champions who beat other men. Soldiers who won their medals for risky work in disaster zones or helping during humanitarian crises weren't any more interesting than the soldier on home base pushing paper at a desk. Now, why would this be? Sure, men who beat up other men often got the girl in our anthropological past, but why was this so attractive? It had to do with protection and risk-taking. Women desired protection from marauding males, and they needed it for their offspring. And risk-taking? Adapting to an ever-changing environment meant taking big risks. Now, remember I said that, because today's changing environment means taking new kinds of risks for men. Way back when, some brave dude got into a freaking canoe with some buddies and paddled out further than the birds would fly to march across new continents looking for food. That's risk-taking. Yesterday's fighters have evolved into today's athletes. Almost every sport is an evolved version of the hunt. For millions of years, men banded in teams, an alpha took charge, men lined up behind him, and they dragged back huge game, like a woolly mammoth. You know, men could just have easily fed their families on a few squirrels and nuts, but they dragged back big game when there was no refrigeration. What to do with all that meat before it rotted? Don't worry, it didn't rot. It was extra protein to share with other women or to steal women from their boyfriends. Old Spice men's cologne has that one figured out.
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me.
In today's times, there is no hunt. And except for international wars, which mostly take place in cockpits, there is less hand-to-hand combat. Unless you like your boyfriend to get arrested. So how do men showcase their bravery? And how do they beat up their rivals? Through sports, of course. Yesterday's woolly mammoth is today's Stanley Cup, Super Bowl ring, NBA championship trophy, world heavyweight boxing belt trophy thing, whatever that thing's called. Professional athletes have it all, the medals and the money to feed many babies. Those same researchers who studied military men also studied athletes. But you don't need a study to know how that one plays out. You can probably guess the numbers. The average American family gives birth to 1.8 kids. I know, that 0.8 kid is always a little weird. But male professional athletes, they are incredibly talented at getting women pregnant. Gold medal delivery room winners can be found in most every sport.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cassius Marcellus Clay. He's young, he's handsome, they know it.
Let's start with the boxer Cassius Clay, known as Muhammad Ali. He fathered 9 children with 5 mothers. But he was beaten by another boxing legend, Evander Holyfield, who had 11 children with 8 women.
15 seconds to go in the first half, make it 14.
Football seems to be much more efficient for reproduction. There are too many football players to name with upwards of 7 children each. But let's give one award to Travis Henry for how many women he spread his seed to. 11 children born to 10 mothers.
Touchdown! You gotta be kidding me!
Basketball, great for reproduction too. Calvin Murphy capped his NBA career with a Hall of Fame induction in 1993, but I think he really wins the award for human mating. 14 children by 9 women. Don't worry, soccer, we got you covered. Manuel Francisco dos Santos, known as Garrincha, is a legend among Brazilian footballers. He was also a legend with the ladies. He's reported to have passed his genes to 14 children by an undisclosed number of mothers. Now remember, the average guy has only 1.8 kids. And this is why the man code slowly evolved. It was a way to win the mating game. Even today, most boys learn an explicit or implicit code of conduct. The wisdom of millions of years of hunters and warriors is buried deep in their DNA. Running through every man's veins is the blood of men who had to look into the eyes of a wild animal or a rival tribesman and coldly plunge a spear into their heart. Violence and aggression were selected for, or survival, for centuries. And feelings like fear or vulnerability had no place in the hunt. This is how we got here. To a place where the only feelings many men were allowed to express were anger and jealousy, rage toward rivals. Remember this classic scene with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise in the 1992 film A Few Good Men?
We use words like honor, code, loyalty. We use these words as the backbone of a life spent defending something. You use them as a punchline. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide and then questions the manner in which I provide it. I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, I suggest you pick up a weapon and stand a post.
For most boys, man training begins with fathers through sports.
So I was raised by a military father, a sergeant major. He went through Vietnam twice, etc. So when he talked to us, it was be home at 1,200 hours or 1,400 hours. It was yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. It was not mom and dad. So we were raised in a very strict home. We did not get the choice whether or not we were going to play sports. My dad lived vicariously through my older brother and me, and he made us play sports. Football, basketball, baseball, into running track. There was never a choice. My mother ended up divorcing my father because he ended up almost killing my older brother. I was his quarterback, so he never touched me.
I was born and raised in Paris. I was raised with the understanding that you're a man. You just have to handle things, not be very sensitive, very close to action, and just execute. Execute. Protect, execute, don't feel too much. If you feel quick and then get over it.
For other men, coaches did the work of enforcing the man code.
When I think back about me being raised, I think I was raised more by my basketball coaches than I was by my father, because I had coaches in my life from a very young age, and they were extremely tough. I attended an all-boys Catholic high school, and they throw the basketball at you. They tell you to man up. They curse you out. And that's where I really feel like when I think back where I really got my backbone, if you will.
Boys who weren't into sports often had to suck it up and pretend to like sports in order to conform to the man code. Here's one of our Mating Matters listeners.
Boys like sports. That's you play them, you watch them, you like them, and I hated it. But because it was kind of ingrained in me, boys like sports, and as well as all my friends liked sports, and then my dad and my brother liked sports, that was kind of the common bond that I had with them. And so I would sit through, televised sporting events because that was the only thing I had.
But even when a man had a sensitive father, he learned that aggression should be used to protect others, especially women.
I feel like I'm spoiled because my dad is, to this day, like one of the best men I've ever known. He is honorable and loyal. If he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. I will never forget this. I was a kid. I want to say I was probably like 10 or something like that. And we're driving through a parking lot, and he sees some guy and his girlfriend arguing next to the car. And then the guy starts like yelling at the girl, and she looks scared. And so my dad like pulls over to the side and kind of looks at them and is like, is everything all right? Like, do you need help or anything like that? And the guy said something, mind your own business or something like that. And the girl just kind of looked at him and like nodded, like, it's okay, I'm all right. And the dude like calmed down. But my dad, I know that he would have like thrown down. I know he would have if he had to.
Boys acculturate other boys too. The schoolyard is every bit a training ground for young men.
I had a really great male example right at home. And then all the bad male examples, I had to venture out into the world to find those on my own. And I remember being a kid, I was probably in second or third grade or something. And I asked a younger kid, I can't remember, I was taking like karate lessons at the time or something. So I asked him like, oh, you're taking karate lessons too? I thought I saw you. And he was like, oh yeah. And I was like, oh, what belt are you? So I don't remember what it was. And he was like, I don't know. I don't want to tell you. And I was like, well, you better tell me or I'll beat you up. And the kid's like, no, I'm not going to tell you about it. And I was like, man, I guess I have to beat this kid up now. Like, isn't that terrible? I still think about it sometimes. And I kind of like punched him in the stomach or something like that. I felt so horrible. And it just made me feel miserable. I felt like I had to fit in. I had, like I was called out.
So does all this still have reproductive advantage? There's plenty of research to support the idea that manly men can easily get access to women. But can they keep them? Mate retention is also important for survival. In today's mating environment, a father's investment of sperm and money alone aren't always enough to have successful offspring that will grow up to reproduce healthy people themselves. For the last couple centuries, the traditional nuclear family required an investment of time and talent by fathers, too, helping kids get an education, a business introduction, and making enough money to establish the family in a social class that exposed kids to good mates. Those skills involve some social and emotional intelligence, something that can be lacking in the warrior. A review of the research prepared by Rosalinda Mori for the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University found that service members, when compared to civilians, had a significantly lower level of the personality trait agreeableness. That's the tendency to be warm and caring. Lower levels of agreeableness can be pretty helpful when one is serving in the military, but can be really detrimental to interpersonal relationships. In fact, many old-school, hyper-masculine men, whether they're military or not, sometimes carry a misogyny that can make them terrible husbands.
Fuck you, April! Fuck you and all your hateful...
What are you gonna do now? Are you gonna hit me to show me how much you love me?
Don't worry, I can't be bothered. You're not worth the trouble it would take to hit you. You're not worth the powder it would take to blow you up.
That was the actors Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet in the 2008 movie Revolutionary Road. But times have changed since a slice of woolly mammoth was all it took to woo a woman. Remember I told you that men are very good risk takers and problem solvers? All humans learn to adapt to survival pressures. Today's risk to survival isn't a hungry lion or a harsh winter. It's an emotional landscape. No longer is male survival just about warring with rivals and hunting animals to impress women. Today, women are asking for more. We are now in the information age, where women's skills are uniquely suited for survival. Social sensitivity, emotional intelligence, and communication skills. With women having the security of their own paycheck, they've upped the ante on what they desire in a mate. The latest threat to male Homo sapien? Rejection by women for lack of emotional communication. For real. T. Joel Wade of Bucknell University in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, and Justin Magilski of the University of South Carolina analyzed a wealth of data from scores of studies on modern couples. In particular, they wanted to know what the data said about why couples break up. They called it mate expulsion. Not surprisingly, men were more likely to give their partner the boot when she limited sexual accessibility. But women, they hit the eject button on their man when they found not a lack of sex, but a lack of emotional accessibility. The researchers also looked at reconciliation skills when a relationship was on the rocks. Again, not surprisingly, men reported that the most effective way to reconcile was for his partner to have sex with him. But women, the last thing they wanted to do was have sex when they were angry. Instead, the women in the study reported that they just wanted, quote, time spent together, crying and apologizing. Here's why women are demanding more sensitive men. Remember those aggressive medal winners who pummeled rivals? Well, sometimes they pummeled women too.
It's been 3 years since Michelle moved away from her abuser.
Looking back, I don't know why I didn't just call the police right away.
To understand why she left, we have to start well before that.
The first time he choked me, it was actually till I passed out.
And that was only the beginning.
I mean, I didn't really think that could happen. I didn't think any of it could happen, but not a concussion.
According to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1 in 4 American women will experience violence from an intimate partner during her lifetime. And if a woman is murdered, her murderer is most likely to be a current or former lover. But sensitive men who express their feelings may have other ways to release anger. Sigmund Freud once said that the first man to hurl a word instead of a rock was evolving. Enter the great adapters, evolving men who are taking risks at the forefront of change. After working with hardened penitentiary inmates, author and educator Tony Porter founded A Call to Men, an organization promoting healthy, respectful manhood. Porter's TED Talk has been named by GQ magazine as one of the top 10 TED Talks every man should see. He coined the term the man box after he realized that he was training his own son to suppress his feelings. He would allow his small daughter to cry on his lap as long as she needed. But with his young son, his patience, he says, lasted about 30 seconds.
I would find myself saying things like, just go in your room. Just go on in your room, sit down, get yourself together, and come back and talk to me when you could talk to me like a what? Like a man. And he's 5 years old.
In his TED Talk, Porter talks about his own man code training. I warn you, this story may be a little disturbing to listen to. He shares with remorse a story about being encouraged by an older teenager to rape a mentally disabled girl when he was the age of 12. He didn't want to do it.
My man box card was immediately in jeopardy. 2 things. One, I never had sex. And we don't talk about that as men. You only tell your dearest, closest friends sworn to secrecy for life the first time you had sex. For everybody else, we go around like we've been having sex since we was 2. There ain't no first time. The other thing I couldn't tell them is that I didn't want any. You know, that's even worse. We're supposed to always be on the prowl. Women are objects, especially sexual objects.
In the end, he pretended to have sex with the girl and escaped from the room with his man card intact.
And I was feeling a tremendous amount of remorse at that time, but I was conflicting. Because while I was feeling remorse, I was excited because I didn't get caught, but I knew I felt bad about what was happening. This fear getting outside the man box totally enveloped me. It was way more important to me about me and my man box card than about Sheila and what was happening to her.
Today, Porter advises members of the National Football League, the National Basketball Association, the National Hockey League, Major League Soccer, and Major League Baseball on violence prevention and healthy manhood training. Word of Porter's work eventually reached the scientific community, and the male grooming brands Promundo and Axe mounted an international study to see if being stuck in the man box was detrimental to men. Researchers Brian Heelman, Gary Barker, and Alexander Harrison conducted the study of thousands of young men aged 18 to 30 living in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Mexico. The Man Box report revealed that most men still feel pushed to live in the man box, which means they should be self-sufficient, they should act tough, they should look physically attractive, they should stick to rigid gender roles, be heterosexual, have sexual prowess, and use aggression to resolve conflicts. But here's the biggest takeaway. The deeper a man was buried in the man box, the worse his mental health and the worse his physical health. Today, there is an international movement to liberate men.
As I grew up, started to date, my girlfriend wanted me to express more my emotion, and I had to learn it. As an adult, it was not that easy. So I decided on my own to take therapy for that, to go to therapy for that, to learn to actually express myself, express what I feel, allow myself to cry, tell someone I love you, because I was not raised with I love you. No, that's not even something that was said at home.
Other men are firmly out of the man box and expressing themselves as sensitive husbands and fathers. This man was a stay-at-home dad when his daughter was young. When his daughter was born, he and his wife had full-time office jobs.
It came down to a decision of daycare, whether we wanted to put our child in daycare or whether we wanted a parent to stay home. She couldn't do what she does from home, but I could. So it seemed a decision made of convenience and of sort of natural inevitability that this was the right choice. But once I was home and with the child, I didn't see anything that I was doing as gender specific in any way. I always saw it as necessity. You were there to care for your child, and so who wouldn't do that?
And celebrities are getting in on the action of setting men free. Actor, director, and producer Justin Baldoni created a TV show called Man Enough to explore what it means to be a man today. The hunky actor also took to the TED stage and in his talk described an example of how he liberated one man through social media. The text-based clash came after Baldoni posted a photo of himself kissing his wife.
Now, afterwards, I was scrolling through some of the comments, and I noticed that one of my female fans had tagged her boyfriend in the picture. And her boyfriend responded by saying, "Please stop tagging me in gay shit. Thanks." As if being gay makes you less of a man, right?
He says he responded to the guy by asking what was so offensive about expressing his love for his wife.
He immediately wrote me back. I thought he was going to go off on me, but instead he apologized. He told me how growing up, public displays of affection were looked down on. He told me that he was wrestling and struggling with his ego, and how much he loved his girlfriend and how thankful he was for her patience.
Baldoni says a few weeks later, the guy messaged him again, this time with a photo of him proposing to his girlfriend. All it said was thank you.
See, publicly, he was just playing his role, rejecting the feminine, right? But secretly, he was waiting for permission to express himself, to be seen, to be heard, and all he needed was another man holding him accountable and creating a safe space for him to feel, and the transformation was instant.
Granted, there are still some men trying the old way to reproduce. They underscore traditional gender roles that perpetuate coercion or violence against women and homophobia. And they continue to enforce the man code that was needed in past generations.
There's just like a lot of, schoolyard talk about, like the whole idea of the man card. Like if there's a certain thing that you like or a certain thing that you refuse to disdain or whatever, they talk about, we're going to pull your man card, that kind of thing. It's something that like guys do even now, like if I go out for, a drink with friends or something, and I order a margarita or whatever, and they're like, man, what are you doing with that girl drink? You're going to pull your man card.
Others have grown and say they want something different for their sons, even though they may have begun fatherhood using the well-worn man code route.
We're all evolving every day. I coached my son in basketball. I was hard as hell on my kid. When he was 20 years old, I told him as a college student, I apologize for the way I coached you when you were in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. Because I realized looking back, no, I was my dad.
Some men still believe that the man code has some value.
This is a podcast, so I can probably get away with saying this, but I heard it as from a comedian saying it, but the pussification of the American male bothers me a little bit because I see it in some of these young guys where I say, you know what, I think that they would get a lot more out of life if they were just a little bit stronger. I don't mean meaner, I just mean a little bit stronger. And in the inside. Because to me, success is 90% what beats in your chest, 10% in your head. And if you don't feel responsibility, accountability to walk a certain way, you kind of let society walk over you a little bit.
In terms of the disciplinary measures, like we would jog at 3 o'clock in the morning in 30-degree weather. If we lost the game, we would just run suicides. I don't know if you're familiar with suicides.
They hurt.
Yes. And we had to suck it up. But I actually have found that kind of toughness has prepared me for life as an adult.
Yet this same man wants his daughters to date men who are free from the man box.
I want my daughters to be in healthy relationships with men that they can communicate with. I wouldn't want to see them with someone that was macho man. I would want to see them have children with a man that is sensitive to their kids.
And some say being sensitive and emotionally open has a sexual payoff.
You need to feel feeling will lead to sexuality. At first, sexuality was that you kind of idealize it, and then you still don't get attached. I discovered that I needed feeling to actually understand sexuality.
Let's end with the wisdom of a man who has seen both sides of the man box. A former professional hockey player who was coached to be aggressive, very aggressive.
I remember guys being asked to go out and fight, and not that they would not be willing to go and do that, but it's sort of, if you didn't want to go and fight, they would look down at you or put you down in the sense that, you weren't manly enough, you weren't tough enough, and those sort of things. And I mean, nobody wants to fight. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been hit in the face, but nobody really wants to do that.
But now, retired at the ripe old age of 29 and a coach himself, he teaches a different kind of manhood to his young athletes.
The way I coach kids is maybe with a little bit less of that, fear tactic and putting guys down and stuff like that. I personally don't think that people are being raised too soft, and I don't even think I like that term of being raised too soft, just because, men are comfortable showing their feelings and saying, what they feel is right or wrong, or, I think that sort of stuff is part of being a man and being able to be comfortable in that. I would say being a man takes sensitivity and all those kind of things nowadays, and I think people are just coming around to understanding that.
Certainly, there is no one right way to be a man. And evolution has shown that mating pressures change as our environment changes. Aggression is a natural part of human beings. I don't think it's a coincidence that as cultures become less violent, movies, music, and gaming has become more violent. Our media may be a cathartic expression of the fighters that lived inside us for millions of years, because now it's not needed in love. I'm Dr. Wendy Walsh. Thanks for listening to Mating Matters. Coming up on our next episode, mean girls, gold diggers, and sluts. Female to female competition for mates. Mating Matters is produced in partnership with iHeartMedia. It is researched, interviewed, and written by me, Dr. Wendy Walsh, and it is edited and produced by Brooke Peterson. People don't learn about podcasts usually by just searching around. They learn about a podcast because somebody who loved that podcast told them about it. So I encourage you to please subscribe, write a review, and more than anything, hit that share button now. Think of somebody who would like to hear this information as much as you enjoyed it. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Dr. Wendy Walsh. Listen to Mating Matters on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. Wendy Walsh.